Honda engine V10 has got enormous grunt, and don't forget Gerhard Berger, who won here last year. Indeed, all the top 4 men on the grid have won here. Prost has won 3 times, 84, 87, 88. Nigel Mansell won for Williams in 1986. Senna won in 1985 for Lotus, and Berger won last year for Ferrari. They are the 4 front men on the grid. They are the best drivers in the World Championship this year. Everybody's peeling off. There is Mauricio Gugelmin, who is a bit better after his flu yesterday.
And of course the drivers stay in line on the racing line as long as possible. That's why they're jumping out over to the left-hand side of the grid as we look at it. That is to keep their already hot and sticky tyres clean, because the cars keep the racing line clean, and they don't pick up dirt and things that stick to their tyres.
So, everybody in line, the cars at the back. There is the green flag, which shows that the grid is clear. Any second now, and it's away. A very, very quick start indeed. And Nigel Mansell gets away. Prost behind him, but Senna leads. Incredible. And Berger is second. Both the McLaren Hondas get ahead of both the Ferraris at the first corner. Incredible. Senna, and then Berger, followed by Mansell and Prost. And this is totally unexpected, and it means to say that the Ferraris have got the hard work to do. And Nannini in the low downforce Benetton is up into 4th place. There he goes, followed by Alain, Prost, then Patrese. Lacey is up from 9th on the grid, and Senna is already building a gap. Lap 1, 70-lap race.
Yes, and that was really down to 4 starts by both Ferrari drivers. Goodish starts, but nothing special by the 2 McLaren men. And what I don't think that looks like De Cesaris off the road already, and that won't be any great loss to the race. So De Cesaris, it would appear, and here we see a replay. Very difficult to see through all the dust, but looks like the usual midfield bumping session. But the start, certainly, Mansell made a poor start off pole, and then carved up his teammate Alain Prost in trying to get across the track in self-defense, or to defend his position. And I don't think Prost will be thanking him for getting in his way, because Prost had made a better but not good start, and I think had to brake as Mansell carved him up.
So Senna leads at the end of lap 1, and that's a bonus he certainly didn't expect, especially as Ferrari have spent 2 days at Monza practicing starts. Lap 2 then, Ayrton Senna leading by 0.7 of a second at the end of the first lap from his teammate Berger. Mansell in 3rd position, but it's a long race. Tactics will count in the end, and as we have frequently said, tyres may well decide who wins the Portuguese Grand Prix. Alessandro Nannini, it's Nelson Piquet in 4th position. Piquet's come up, Prost is 5th, Patrese is 6th. Then Lacey, followed by Boutsen in 8th place. Sandro Nannini is 9th. Pirro is in a good 10th place. And you are looking now at, or you were looking at, Andrea De Cesaris' car. He was enormously unpopular yesterday. Philippe Alliot nearly had a fist fight with him after De Cesaris got in his way and took him off and smashed the Ligier, and he did the same thing to Nicola Larini on Friday. So a lot of people are thinking it really is time that De Cesaris got out of Grand Prix racing. Senna leads, Berger second. They're coming up to the highest part of the course now, leading through to come and complete the second lap with 69 to go. And Senna must be almost disbelieving his good fortune to be in front at this stage of the race with the Ferraris dragging along behind him.
Yes, and Prost now back in 5th place will not be pleased with Mansell as the Benetton. Now he said look out for their straight line speed, and Piquet and Mansell, I don't think Piquet like that. That was weaving on the straight by Nigel Mansell, and that really was a bit naughty. He should have gone over to the inside of the track straight away if he was wanting to cover the inside against Piquet, and not move when Piquet moved, and that was real Formula 3 style inexperienced driving from Mansell. Piquet won't be pleased.
And it's another indication of the return to form of Nelson Piquet, who is running at the present moment 5th place in the championship. He's finished in the points in nearly every race. The Benetton handles extremely well, and as James has said, they have got very, very little downforce from the wings. That means to say they're tremendously quick on the start and finish straight as they come out of turn 11, where incidentally the drivers are pulling 4G for 4 full seconds. And that is an incredible load on them. They're coming up towards it now, and I'm expecting expecting Nelson Piquet to have another go at Mansell, who is in third position, with Senna now leading by nearly a full second from Berger. There is Mansell in second place, and he must be kicking himself out of that turn 11. Now, watch Piquet in the background with Prost behind him. Then in sixth position is Patrese. Alain is the top Pirelli runner in seventh place, and Senna's lead is still 9/10 of a second over his teammate Gerhard Berger. Mansell.
Yes, and Mansell appears to have settled a bit then. He's pulled away a little bit from Piquet and is now looking to settle down and chase the McLarens. Now, it's interesting because the Mansell was a good bit quicker than the McLarens in the warm-up this morning, although Senna didn't have a very representative warm-up because he had a bit of a misfire with his race engine. They thought they knew what it was and had cured it, but as a precaution, Senna is running with a fresh engine. They changed his engine after the warm-up this morning, and that certainly isn't misfiring. It seems to be running smoothly, but Mansell now starting to show the form that he showed in the warm-up, is moved right up onto the McLaren duo, as close as he wants to be at the moment, and I would think that he'll be starting to consider making a challenge. He may have a look for a couple of laps first to get in position. It's a slow, painstaking task, preparing to overtake in this business when the cars are so equally matched on the straight line, and getting close hurts aerodynamics. This is the overtaking point, the start-finish straight. Mansell not close enough this time, and he'll be dismayed to see there that he didn't pull much in the new fastest lap of the race for Mansell.
Yannick Dalmas in the only AGS joins Andrea de Cesaris by retiring from the Portuguese Grand Prix, and that was on lap 5. And you can see now that Nigel Mansell has well and truly recovered. He's pulling away from Nelson Piquet. He's right on the tail of Gerhard Berger. It's Senna, Berger, Mansell virtually together, then Piquet followed by Prost, Patrese and Boutsen.
Yes, and Prost is now certainly starting to close in on Piquet. Again, I suspect he'll take his time about sizing up the situation because he can still see the McLarens at the front of the race. He's not worried as yet about them building too much of a lead, but it's time to start getting down to work for Alain Prost. We know that he likes to settle himself in at the start of a race, make as good a start as possible. There's the new fastest lap for Nigel Mansell, but that's going to take a right bashing over the next hour plus.
Fastest lap, incidentally, the lap record, Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari last year, 1 minute 18.896, that's 123 miles an hour, as Senna, Berger, Mansell, Piquet, Prost and Patrese go over the line. And there are several other drivers on the harder B-compound tyre than we had thought. The good news, because not only is Derek Warwick also using them, as Nannini is, Yannick Dalmas he's out of the race, Nicola Larini in the Ligier, and Bernard and Suzuki in the Lola cars. But Mansell forcing hard now. This is lap 6 in this 71-lap Portuguese Grand Prix, which is so critical to the World Championship. And Alain Prost, second to Senna in the championship, and 16 points behind him, is in fifth position at the moment. Not good news. Prost, of course, is famous for his tactical driving. Into the pits there, Derek Warwick. Doesn't seem to matter whether he has B's or C's on at the moment, because with the engine cover coming off the Lamborghini engine in the Lola, it looks as though Derek Warwick is out to join Yannick Dalmas and Andrea de Cesaris, and Derek Warwick, if he's retired, went out on lap 6. I'll keep an eye on the pit road for him. I can see it from here. And Nigel Mansell forging on. This will be his last Portuguese Grand Prix for Ferrari. Ayrton Senna coming through. The lead was 7/10 of a second over his teammate Gerhard Berger. Over the line they go. It's still the same, as near as makes no difference. You can see visually how far Nigel Mansell is behind. They're getting a little spread out now. It's about 3 seconds covering the first 5, with Prost still in 5th position. And there go the McLaren. Senna, Berger, Mansell pushing very hard indeed.
Yes, and without any doubt, Nigel Mansell can go probably what he's already shown, half a second a lap quicker than the McLarens are taking things round at the moment, but having said that, he's had a couple of laps to look at the strengths and weaknesses around the various points of the circuit of the McLarens, and I certainly haven't been able to see any obvious weakness or big enough weakness for Mansell to get past them at any event easily. That certainly isn't possible, and it looks to me as if he's going to have a big struggle, because the McLarens look very strong down the start-finish straight, which is the obvious overtaking point on this circuit. Mansell is not hauling them in on that straight, and that's going to make passing them a big problem.
Order on lap 7, which is just about 1/10 distance coming through now. Senna, Berger, McLaren Mansell getting ready to attack Berger as they go into the right hand. And now watch this, out he comes from the behind the slipstream, has to go back again. Berger fights him back. So it's Senna, Berger, Mansell. Piquet still in 4th position. Prost is 5th. Patrese is 6th. Boutsen is in 7th position. Nannini 8th. Alesi in 9th position. Suzuki is 10th. Martin Donnelly in the Lotus, the only one left, because Derek Warwick is still in the pit lane, is 11th, and Pirot is 12th.
Well, we saw then down the start-finish straight, Mansell was absolutely ideally positioned coming onto the straight to attack Berger, and he was right in the tow. Of course, Berger was in the hole in the air made by Senna ahead of him, but the Ferrari made no impression whatsoever. In fact, despite being in the tow, in the hole in the air, he lost ground to Berger on the straight, and although he ducked out to have a look under braking, it was a token effort because he was too far back to try, and that must be depressing in a way for Mansell, although not unexpected. The fact that having been in position A onto the straight, he really didn't get anywhere near looking at an overtaking thing. So now he's down to pressuring, trying to force Berger into a mistake, and trying to find a weakness around the back of the circuit where any overtaking manoeuvre is going to be a bit of a shut your eyes sort of manoeuvre and pray.
Lap 9, you watch Gerhard Berger in 2nd place, and as in every race in which they have both finished this year, Berger is not able to do anything about Ayrton Senna in front of him. There's no question of him not trying to. Gerhard Berger wants to win this race just as much as Ayrton Senna does. Berger won it last year for Ferrari, has yet to win for McLaren, and there's no question of Gerhard Berger blocking or trying to hold Nigel Mansell back to the advantage of Ayrton Senna. And you can see now that the top 3, Senna, Berger and Mansell, are pulling away from Nelson Piquet in 4th position, and that is the Lotus of Derek Warwick, who is definitely out of the Portuguese Grand Prix. 3 retirements by lap 9. De Cesaris with that spin. Yannick Dalmas, the same problem. Derek Warwick out in the pits with, I suspect, a Lamborghini engine problem. And so up into the S's, that's turn 10, now to this 4G 140, 150 mile an hour right-hander, which burst out onto the start and finish straight, where they're doing nearly 200 miles an hour at the end of it, coming through to complete the 9th lap. Senna, Berger, Mansell, as quickly as that. Indeed, there's 1.5 seconds between Senna in the lead and Mansell in 3rd position. The race is far from lost as far as Nigel Mansell is concerned, but before he can get to grips with his rival, Senna, with whom he physically got to grips in the cars last year, he's got to get past Gerhard Berger. There's no sign of that happening. Piquet is now 2.5 seconds in 4th place behind Nigel Mansell, just ahead of Alain Prost, 5th.
Yes, and that will be creating pressure on Alain Prost to try and do something about Nelson Piquet, but the setup on the Benettons running relatively low downforce, which will give them additional straight line speed, will not be conducive to making them easy to pass. They will be relatively a little bit slow around the corners, but you can't pass in the middle of a corner, and then they'll be lightning quick down the straights. And the Ferrari, we know, isn't particularly quick down the straight in race trim, and Prost is really going to have to work hard and use all his skill to try and find a way around Piquet, who, whatever he does, is going to be steady and not going to make mistakes.
Senna coming through to complete his 10th lap, 1/7 of the Portuguese Grand Prix now completed. Last year's race ran for 1 hour and 37 minutes. And Mansell is edging up on Gerhard Berger now. He's just a bit quicker, a couple of tenths of a second faster than Berger on the previous lap.
You might have noticed Mansell's hand waving then in the cockpit as he went up the start-finish straight. I couldn't actually decipher whether he was cleaning his visor and taking a tear-off strip off it, or whether he was actually making some hand signal to his pit. I think probably the former.
Let's hope it wasn't a signal which indicates that he's in trouble. Not that it looks as though he is, but Mansell has retired from 8 of the 12 Grand Prix so far this year, whereas his teammate Alain Prost has only retired from 3 of them. And the general feeling was that Nigel Mansell was not getting as good a deal from the Ferrari team as was Prost. And Mansell now has very much got Gerhard Berger in his sights.
Yeah, and certainly the way he's going, the only trouble that I can see is he seems to be suffering, which is quite a big trouble, is 2 fairly wide and very powerful McLaren Hondas right in his way. And certainly he will now know, and I'm sure, well, I say now know, he knew that before the race, but he will now have it fully confirmed just what a large task he's got to try and... Now, he's perfectly positioned onto the straight, and look, he's not pulling Berger in at all on the straight. That was not a position from which to have a shot. Prost the same, with Piquet actually pulling away from him, although he's towing him along with a hole in the air. And so the 2 Ferrari drivers who... and Prost having a go. Ooh! And that's the sort of thing that's going to happen. That's the way Prost, the only way I think Prost's going to get past the Benetton. The Benetton, of course, will have to be a little bit light early on the brakes. And the Nini, I think that is in the background coming through.
Yeah, and behind Prost, Patrese and Boutsen are getting closer all the time in 6th and 7th places as the leading trio come towards us on this, the 12th lap out of 71, and there's still only just over a second between Senna leading, Mansell in 3rd position, who is now 3.5 seconds ahead of Piquet, who's got Prost right behind him in 5th position. Patrese, Boutsen and Nannini in the 2 Williams Renaults and the Benetton respectively are closing up on Alain Prost in 5th position, and we're likely soon to be having a 4 or 5 car train battling for that position. And in 9th position it is Alain, and now Mansell's going for it again. He can take 2nd place. No, he can't, because he's just on the wrong line. He had a look there as they came down to the end of the straight.
Yes, it is frustrating because he had a look, but he was really too far behind. He had to be awfully brave, possibly to the extent of foolhardiness, to have a go from that range. And as long as Berger is in touch with Senna, like as close as this behind him, you see what happens when Mansell pulls out of Berger's toe from behind him. Berger stays in the hole in the air made by Senna, so Mansell goes into still air. Berger still has a hole in the air, and of course he then pulls away from Mansell again on the straight. So he's got a really big problem. The best that Nigel can hope for at the moment is that Senna starts to turn up the wick a bit, pulls away from Berger, which will slow Berger down slightly on the straight, and then he can try and deal with Berger, and then do a separate operation on Senna if he can get past Berger and catch up to Senna. But he really wants those McLarens separate.
I think the tyre stops could decide this race. They'll be happening from round about lap 23 onwards, in a situation where, in practice anyway, neither Senna nor Berger were as happy with the handling of their McLarens as were Prost and Mansell, and especially Mansell with the Ferrari.
And Prost I saw coming onto the straight then ahead of Nelson Piquet, so Prost has done it round the back of the circuit, which is what he had to do, and it may be that Mansell is going to have to look at the McLarens in that light and try and find a way round them. Now, let's see what lap time Prost can produce, because remember, Prost has got a bit of a gap. He's nearly 5 seconds behind Mansell. He'll have a clear road, and let's see if he can catch Mansell and the 2 McLarens, and if so, at what sort of speed. This is the sort of time we'd expect Prost, if all is well, to be setting some fastest laps and closing in on the leaders.
Yes, Prost is almost certainly the best thinker, the best tactical thinker in Grand Prix racing these days. Ayrton Senna hasn't got so much of a problem. He's out alone. He's not yet in a position where he's going to be lapping people. And there you see the Lotus in the pit is Martin Donnelly. and that is not a tyre stop, so it sadly looks to me as though Donnelly is going to be joining Derek Warwick in retirement. I'm looking across the pit lane. Like Warwick, they have the engine cover off, and it looks to me as though there's going to be a second Lotus retirement. And in the last lap, Alain Prost lapped nearly half a second faster than Mansell, who goes through. Now there is Prost in fourth position. The gap was 4.9 seconds, and with the first three over the line, it's down to 4.1. So Prost is gaining fast in fourth place.
Yes, the new fastest lap by Prost by a long way. He's taken some 0.6 of a second off the previous fastest lap on that lap, and is certainly going to inject some extra pace into this race. And you alluded just now, Murray, to Prost being the past master of the thinking drivers, and certainly he is that. But the worry for both him and all other drivers in the immediate future is that starting at Hockenheim this year, in my opinion anyway, Ayrton Senna started to use his head in a different way to the way he'd been doing before, a more ordered and more logical approach, a more thought out race structure, and which he's continued to do since. And I think Senna is now starting to think in an extremely advanced way. He's a highly intelligent driver, and it's been long overdue in my opinion, but combined with his undoubted genius at the wheel, Senna is now if he can keep this up, threatening to become the greatest driver of all time, in my opinion. He's more dominant now than he's ever been at any stage, and he looks more composed in doing it, although this certainly is a hard race for him, because the Ferrari chassis is undoubtedly better than the McLaren chassis round Estoril, and so they're going to have the Ferraris snapping at their heels, certainly for as long as they're healthy. And Prost at the moment, fastest man on the circuit. That's Mansell, already pressing the two McLarens. Prost won't be too long before he's with them.
Under 4 seconds now behind Nigel Mansell. Alain Prost in fourth position ahead of Nelson. Piquet in fifth position, some half a second behind the Ferrari. Then Riccardo Patrese is in sixth position behind Piquet. Boutsen is seventh. Nannini is in eighth position. Alesi is ninth. Suzuki in the Lola is in 10th position. Pirro is in 11th place. In 12th position it is Cathy. Both the Lotus cars are definitely out, and that's very sad news indeed. They really needed a good finish here in Portugal. And Mansell's definitely dropping back a bit now. Senna's just gone round in 1 minute 20.74 compared with the lap record 1 minute 18.9 by Gerhard Berger Ferrari last year, completing a lap.
Yes, I hope that Mansell's little drop back there is purely tactical to look after his tyres, because he's been pressing Berger very hard, which leans on the tyres a lot, hurts their overall race performance in the long run, puts more wear, you slide the car about more when you're close behind another one, and hopefully he's just dropping back, not for lack of speed, but to give himself and his tyres a rest. And you need to do that. You cannot drive right under somebody's rear wing for very long, because you can't see where you're going. You're full, your view is full only of the car in front. They're pretty wide from close range, and of course the car has less grip in the corners because of the turbulence from the car you're following, which makes it a real fight to drive, particularly when you can't really see the track ahead of you properly. So it's not for doing for very long, and as I say, it also hurts the tyres. So hopefully Mansell's no problems, just taking a little rest for himself and his car to regroup himself for another effort. And in that time, he'll be hoping that Senna will pull away from Berger, thereby making Berger easier to attack on the straight.
And you've seen visually that Alain Prost, as Donnelly coasting in there, he's come out of the pits and is now definitely retiring. And Alain Prost is reeling. Number 2 Ferrari, Nigel Mansell, third position in. Alain Prost went round 1 minute 20.7 the last lap. Mansell 1 minute 21.3. And I'll give you the gap between Alain Prost in fourth position and Nigel Mansell in third position. It's 3.5 seconds, so it has increased slightly because Nigel Mansell is speeding up. 1 minute 20.439. It's all comparative because the car of Berger just in front of him is lapping at almost exactly the same time and speed, and Senna is too.
Yes, the fuel loads are coming steadily down, of course, so the cars do quite noticeably speed up. Remember that when they start a Grand Prix, these engines are pretty thirsty, and the car starts well over half as heavy again when it's full of fuel as to its nearly dry weight will be when it finishes the race. Now there's Prost coming to the picture. We had a good view of the gap. Donnelly back in the pits, and it really looks like this is certainly terminal as far as any serious part in this afternoon's race is concerned. Maybe they're trying to find a fault and they'll do a bit of testing, but in the competitive part of the proceedings, that's obviously it for both notices.
Well, the start position has reversed what normally happens. The pole and second place man, the front row of the grid, normally get away well and can dominate the race. By bodging for whatever reason their start, both Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost were taken by both the McLarens by the first corner. Senna into the lead, Berger into second place. Race speed, of course, and this difficult circuit to pass on makes things almost impossible unless one of the McLaren drivers makes a mistake. Mansell is getting closer now.
Yes, I think there's the caption, a new fastest lap for Alain Prost, but he's only just edging it down. And the interesting thing is, although Prost is the fastest man on the circuit, the others have speeded up, and they're 3 ahead of him, and he's not catching them in what I'd call a very particularly dominant sort of way. He's only inching towards them, and that to me means that even when he catches them, overtaking is going to be a real problem for him. And Senna is looking pretty composed up front. He is starting to inch away from Berger, so Prost has got a lot of work to do even before he can threaten Senna, and that's a very comfortable position for Ayrton Senna. 16-point lead in the championship, only 3 races to go after this one, and Alain Prost exactly where he wants him. He knows where he is. He's got his own teammate protecting him. Mansell, despite Mansell's attentions, he doesn't really look like passing Berger. He's not close enough now, and the slower in the straight line Ferraris are going to have a lot of work to do, and another new fastest lap for Alain Prost. Mansell also speeded up, and the leaders very much speeding up. Alain Prost 19.9 now, so time's coming down, and they're beginning to get towards shooting at last the old lap record.
You're looking at Nelson Piquet in 5th position, 9 seconds behind Prost, but only 1 second ahead of Riccardo Patrese, the evergreen Williams driver, who's got his teammate Thierry Boutsen behind him in 7th place, ahead of Alessandro Nannini, who is 8th. Now there is Piquet with the Ford V8 engine behind him. Nelson Piquet, 3 times world champion, and he's had a 2nd and a 3rd and 2 4ths and 3 5ths and 2 6th places this year. And you can see there that lap of Alain Prost is getting pretty close to the lap record, 1 minute 18.9, Gerhard Berger, Ferrari last year. And there is Patrese. Behind him, Boutsen, who has been dominated by his Italian teammate in practice here, and Alessandro Nannini still in 8th place ahead of Alesi and Suzuki.
Now, as you look at the leading 4, you will probably have noticed that they are very, very close together, and sufficiently close together that if they are all making tyre stops, which I'm sure they will be, then the teams are going to, this race is going to be won and lost in the pit. Because if the Ferrari team, for example, can do their tyre stop only a 1.5 seconds or so quicker than McLaren can turn Senna around, that could get Mansell out in the lead, or Prost if he can just close up that gap, which he is doing. He's catching them, and if he can get right on the tail, then if Ferrari can turn Prost around in lightning time, get him out in front, I think that the Ferrari is likely to go away from the McLarens, or it will certainly bring out the very best in Ayrton Senna to give the chase. So the teams in the pits, as I'm sure they're acutely aware, are going to win or lose this race, and that will put extra pressure on them. And remember, the way not to turn a car around fast is to have any element of panic as the team comes in. The way to change those wheels fast is to move slowly but surely and efficiently.
And my goodness, there was panic in the Ferrari pit last year when Nigel Mansell came in, overshot and reversed. Here he is, having another look with Gerhard Berger, and again having to give best to the Austrian as he goes round turn 1 at about 145 miles an hour, drops down into the right-hander, and then starts to climb out of turn 3.
Now, if I was Ron Dennis of the McLaren team, having seen how even with not a very good toe from Senna, because he's now far enough ahead that Berger isn't getting one, Mansell still can't really attack Berger on the straight. I would slow Berger down round the back of the circuit and get him to give Senna about a 5 or 6 second lead, which takes all the heat out of the pit stop pressure, because that's just what Berger's job as a number 2 should be. And that could start the championship. Now, will McLaren operate these tactics? Because this is definitely the right thing. That can win in the World Championship today. If Berger just creates a gap so that they've got plenty of time to turn Senna around, and there's nothing Ferrari can do about it.
Prost still faster than the 3 men ahead of him as they come up to lap the Brabham, and Prost now is just under 2.5 seconds behind number 2, his teammate Nigel Mansell there in 3rd position. And the race order on this, the 22nd lap, and tyre stops will be coming up soon, is Senna leading. There he is, 2nd and 3rd. You just saw them in the background, Berger and Mansell, with just half a second between them, and Alain Prost 2.1 seconds. He's edging up all the time on the Ferrari in front of him.
Yes, but Senna's edging away, and I think that maybe Berger has had, no, maybe not the word slow down, but I tell you what, Senna knows what he's talking about. I bet you Senna's screaming down his radio to the McLaren pit to slow Berger down and get those Ferraris back. And into the pits, that's one of the Brabhams, I can't see which one.
It's Stefano Modena, and it's not a tyre stop. I'm looking directly across at him now, and the Brabham mechanics are very static indeed. Modena is out of the car and therefore out of the race, and that is De Cesaris, Dalmas, Warwick, Donnelly and Modena out of the Portuguese Grand Prix, with Modena retiring on lap 23. Nigel Mansell still stuck behind Gerhard Berger, but Prost is still inching up on the Ferrari ahead of him. We've got a most interesting tactical situation now, because Senna can win the World Championship. Is he going to be helped by Berger? Prost can win the World Championship, although it's going to be a lot harder for him than Ayrton Senna. Is he going to be helped by Nigel Mansell? We were hypothesizing before the race began, when Nigel Mansell was starting from pole position, that's Modena's car being wheeled out of the race, and Prost was starting second, that there might be a situation on the last lap with Nigel Mansell leading and moving across to let his teammate Alain Prost through to win the Portuguese Grand Prix and take maximum points. Well, that certainly doesn't look like happening at the moment. Indeed, the question is he going to defer to Prost to let him take 3rd position instead of the 4th that he's in now? And you can see now that that gap is just over 1.5 seconds, and Prost is continuing to lap faster than Mansell, Berger and race leader Ayrton Senna.
Yes, well, most importantly for Prost will be the interest of his gap as they got it coming up on one of the Brabhams. And that is Brabham himself. In that car, we've just seen Modena in the pits. And they are now close enough, though, that, of course, a good pit stop from Ferrari and any minor problem, it only needs to be minor for McLaren in turning their cars around, and this whole McLaren, 2 McLarens ahead of 2 Ferraris could easily be reversed.
And it might be soon, because now there is Brabham. Senna's got to lap him, then Berger, then Mansell, then Prost. Senna comes out of Brabham's slipstream in the Brabham. That's the number 3 son of Sir Jack, 3 times world champion. Gerhard Berger next, then Mansell. And I can tell you that the McLaren mechanics and the Ferrari mechanics are all in the pit lane in a tyre-changing mode. And Mansell now takes the opportunity of lapping David Brabham to close right up on Gerhard Berger, and Prost now is in the picture. We are soon going to see a shot where all the 4 leaders are together: Senna, Berger, Mansell, Prost, and that's it.
Yes, Senna made a little bit of ground there by being able to pass Brabham on the straight, which was fortuitous. That's just the way it worked out. So he lost no time with Brabham. The others had to scratch their way round, but Mansell trying to take the opportunist method when Berger went down the inside, but there was no room. He was ready, he was looking for a gap, but Berger kept his cool, kept the gap filled, and Mansell had to stay where he was. But Prost is now right with him, but he'd like to be closer to Senna. And the gap now to Ayrton Senna is about 3 seconds.
Another lap completed, another lap without coming in for a tyre stop, and into the pits comes Suzuki in the Lola. No, it's Eric Bernard, my apologies. Nigel Mansell, third position. Look for Prost in the identical Ferrari. There he is. Prost went round 0.3 of a second faster than Ayrton Senna on that previous lap. We're on lap 26 out of 71 soon. It really is coming up to tyre stop time. And the drivers will take orders from the pits about when to come in. They'll make their own contribution. And there is the first one to come in early. It's Boutsen from 8th position. And he sprints out, having made a good change in the Williams.
It's approximately 3 seconds now, the gap from Senna to fourth man in the battle here as he goes through. Well, that's Mansell and Prost right behind him. So, 3 seconds. A 3-second difference is what Prost needs with Senna, and nearly that, of course, with Berger on the pit stops to be able to get out. If I was Prost, I'd be possibly thinking about going to the pits first of this group to be first out on fresh tyres. Right, and he could do a couple of, they delay their pit stop, and he does a few laps clear down the field, but not in traffic on fresh tyres. He could pick up 5 seconds on them on the road, equivalently, as Mansell gets back into position to challenge Berger, but passing him at this stage so close to pit stop time is of less relevance, and anyway, once again, the power of the Honda took Berger away, and he just simply wasn't close enough.
And you saw the Williams mechanics there ready to greet Riccardo Patrese for new tyres, and off goes Mansell, through goes Prost, and so Prost is now up into third position, down to fourth place. Does that mean to say that Nigel Mansell's tyres are worn, and it's given Senna and Berger the opportunity to pull away a bit, and Prost now has really got the challenge?
And here you see the mistake. Well, he'd made the mistake at that point, but Mansell on the apex of the corner got a little bit wrong, turned in a bit tight, got a bit of a mess, and that was unfortunate. That was really a mistake of concentration there. A little slip of concentration. It hasn't cost him a lot. It's just cost him one place on the road. And Prost will be happy because, in a way, it's actually probably helping Alain Prost because he can get himself right in behind Berger. And he will therefore, without Mansell there, be slightly closer to Senna when it comes to the pit stops, and this is the critical thing now. But I would, as I say, be looking, if I was Prost, I would want to go first in order to get a couple of extra laps on fresh rubber, because he could pull 3 or 4 seconds like that, so long as he can get out on a clear road and not right in the middle of the pack of the field, and that, of course, is the potential problem.
And Senna is now less than 2 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, his rival for the 1990 World Championship, on lap 28 out of 71. Prost, of course, has got the problem that Mansell has had all race, and that is the McLaren Honda of Gerhard Berger in front of him. And Prost, as we have said many times, is not as good as at threading his way through the traffic. That's Nelson Piquet in from 6th position for tyres and out again.
Well, in fact, this definitely makes it time for Prost to stop, because behind him, there's hardly anybody from in the area of the road where he would emerge from the pits when he's changed tyres. With Piquet having stopped, Nannini is the only one some 20 seconds behind, and that's about where Prost might emerge on the road, or just behind him, and then have the problem of passing. Patrese isn't far away, and then there's a huge gap to Boutsen, and he would definitely get out well before Boutsen came round, unless they had a disastrous stop. So Nannini and possibly Patrese would be his only problems on the road if he made his stop now, and I really think Prost should go for the pits now. Now, let's see if he is. Nope, nobody. Mansell is. There goes Mansell. Mansell into the pits for tyres. First stopper. Well, they'll want to turn Mansell around. Will they bring Prost in on the very next lap if they get Mansell away clean?
Well, he seems to be coming in pretty slowly to me. Perhaps he's remembering last year when he came in too quickly and had to back up, waving his arm about. He'll be shouting something over the radio. Well, that's a good stop, and Nigel Mansell sprints out of the pits. I'm looking to see who goes through, and it's Nannini. Nannini, who was in 7th position, is now in 5th place, and Nigel Mansell is back in the race, and that means to say that Boutsen, who was 8th, Piquet, who was 6th, Patrese, who was 7th, and Mansell have all gone in, and Prost is there.
And Prost, I'm sure, must stop this lap. That's as close as he'll ever get to Senna without passing a McLaren, and he doesn't want to have to pass one. He can do that in the pits. So tactically, I'm sure it would be right. Senna doesn't have that pressure at the moment. He'd be happy to sit out for a lap, at least after Prost, find out what Prost did, find out what the pressure situation is. Prost must surely make first move in this situation.
Well, the mechanics must be really sweating. They know that the Portuguese Grand Prix is going to be decided by them on current form, because look how close it is, and Senna comes into the pits, race leader on lap 29. Why aren't we looking at him? Here he is. Now, is he going to be a good stop? 7 seconds would be an extremely good stop, and the wheel stop now. Stopwatch running, up on the jacks, front and rear. Front right on, front left on, and away he goes. Super stop. 6.46 seconds. And as you can see, the Ferrari is ahead of Gerhard Berger. So, Alain Prost leads on lap 30.
That won't help him. He's given the initiative to Senna. Bad tactics by Prost, I'm sure, because Senna's now coming out on fresh tires. Unless Senna gets held in traffic, whatever Prost does, even though he's on a clear road, here we now see what happened. Prost without the toe, you see, with a Berger without Senna's toe. Prost could get alongside him on the straight, inside line into the corner, but he shouldn't have been doing that. I'm certain that Prost should have been going for the pits. This is a difficult one. The McLaren stop was fantastic. That was a fabulous pit stop by the McLaren team under pressure, and I think that Prost's failure to take the initiative there took the pressure off McLaren's. They turned Senna around brilliantly, and I would be surprised now if Prost can make his stop and get out of the pit ahead of Senna on the road, so he will still have it all to do, because he's going to have to find Senna and then pass him. So, Prost now for his stop at last. Too late, though. Arguably too late, but better now than leaving it a few more laps. Now, let's look at this stop. So, Prost will stop now. Fronts are good, the rears are good. Oh no, we got one problem. And the men on the left rear panicked, you see. That was trying to do it too quickly.
8.8 seconds, and that means to say that Alain Prost, now with Gerhard Berger in the lead, has lost 2 seconds effectively to Ayrton Senna on the pit stop on lap 30, and as I was saying earlier on, that may well decide the Portuguese Grand Prix. But now Gerhard Berger, who has yet to come in for tyres, has the knowledge that for the first time he's now leading his teammate who's given him such a run this year.
And I've just seen him round the back of the circuit. Senna Prost just failed to get out in front, and he is now, I would say, visually about a second and a half, 2 seconds behind Ayrton Senna, and that is Thierry Boutsen. That looks very much a mechanical failure. The car's smoking gently from the rear end, so that's his race over for today. Now it's Berger going for the pits. Now Berger, he's got somebody in front of him that maybe slowing him down. It looked like one of the Minardis. So let's see if McLaren can repeat that brilliant form on Berger stop. No.
Sorry, I just started the stopwatch there. 6.46 seconds is what he's got to beat, and he's done it. So there goes Boutsen. Thierry Boutsen, a very unhappy man in the Williams team, has virtually, certainly lost his place to Nigel Mansell next year, and there's Senna.
And I tell a lie, it wasn't Prost that I saw around the back of the circuit right behind Senna. It was Nigel Mansell who set a new fastest lap. But Alain Prost has got Nannini in front of him, and he's going to have to get past Nannini before he can attack Mansell and Senna. But at least the three equivalent leaders on the road, as they will be, because they made their stops, and Berger, of course, has made his as well, are all going to come out pretty close together.
So, Nigel Mansell, the fastest man at Estoril at the moment, and this is turning out to be a real nail-biting Portuguese Grand Prix as we look at Ayrton Senna. Now, how far behind him is the Ferrari? There's Senna.
And Berger's got out ahead of Prost as well, so Prost has got Berger to deal with. And leading the race at the moment is Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna leads from Nigel Mansell. Nannini is third on the road, but he hasn't yet stopped. And Prost is behind Nannini.
And that is Michele Alboreto in the pits. And Ayrton Senna now leads Nigel Mansell by 3.6 seconds, with Gerhard Berger after his pit stop in third position. Alessandro Nannini is in fourth place, and the gaps are Senna to Mansell, 3.6 seconds, and you look at Nigel Mansell in second place. Mansell to Berger, 3.7 seconds. The two McLaren Hondas are first and third. Nannini is in fourth place, just ahead of Alain Prost by considerably less than half a second. Nelson Piquet is in sixth.
Teamgenoot Nelson Piquet in elk geval al wel.
McLarens, two Ferraris and two Benettons, with, as you can see from the caption, nearly half a minute between Piquet and Ayrton Senna, race leader. And Nigel Mansell really has got a problem now, but not nearly as big as the one that Prost has got.
Well, yes, and Prost, we called him before the pit stop the master tactician, which over the years he certainly has been, but the master tactician got it absolutely wrong today. Without any shadow of a doubt, he had to stop before the McLarens in order to take the initiative. He was behind them on the road. That was his chance to pass them, but he allowed McLaren to take the initiative, which they grabbed. That opportunity that they would, I think, would have surprised them. They did a brilliant pit stop, and now they're pummeling in fastest lap. Senna, new fastest lap, 19.3.
But Mansell even faster, 1 minute 18.7, and the gap is down to under 3 seconds now. And you can see the Benetton in the background as we look at Alain Prost, and the Benetton behind him is that of Alessandro Nannini. It is lap 34. It's a 71-lap race. Senna 3 seconds ahead of Mansell, who is 4 seconds ahead of Berger, who is 3 seconds ahead of Prost, who is 2 seconds ahead of Nannini. Piquet is 6th. Suzuki in the Lola is in 7th place, and you're looking at the developing battle between Alain Prost 4th, Alessandro Nannini 5th, and as you can see, Mansell is now very close indeed to the lap record. Indeed, he has just broken it. That is a new lap record for Nigel Mansell, 1 minute 18.7, 1/10 of a second faster than Gerhard Berger's 1989 Ferrari lap record. So the Ferraris are fastest. There is Prost behind him, Nannini.
Yes, and that lap record, the new lap record for Mansell is going to take a bit of a battering, I think, over the next little while for the rest of this race. And I dare say it'll be swapped around. Now, we're looking at Mansell, and he's gone past now, under 2 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. Berger some 4 seconds, nearly 5 seconds behind Mansell, and Prost still 4 seconds behind Berger, and he gave it all away with the pit stops. Now, that looks like an injury with a marshal on the side of the course, so that's very worrying. I haven't seen an accident with a car, maybe a stone thrown up or something, or maybe just a thing. Anyway, let's hope he's all right.
That's Berger in third place, but I wish we were looking at the battle for the lead, because there the caption shows you that Ayrton Senna is less than 2 seconds now ahead of Nigel Mansell, who lapped a second faster than the McLaren on lap 34. We're now on lap 35 out of 71, and Gerhard Berger is dropping back. Is he in trouble? Is Prost catching him? It's under 4 seconds now between Prost 4th and Berger in third position. Prost is pulling away from Nannini, who is 5th, who's got his teammate Nelson Piquet 20 seconds behind him in 6th position. It's Suzuki 7th, Patrese 8th, Cafe 9th, and look at Mansell. Mansell is closing up on the gap between Mansell 2nd and Senna in the lead is just a whisker over a second, and Mansell was 7/10 of a second faster than the McLaren on that lap. 7/10 of a second may not sound very much, but when you multiply by the 35 laps that are still left, Mansell could be taking the lead now and pulling away.
And I'm wondering if the set of tyres that Senna's put on are as good as the ones he had before, because Berger's lapping quicker than him. Senna's got a clear road, and of this leading four, that's on the order on the road, that's Senna, Mansell, Berger and Prost. Senna right now seems to be the slowest on the road. It may be that he's playing it gently. Remember, Senna's got a big lead in the World Championship. He's in the commanding position of this race. He doesn't have to hurry. It's a tight circuit. He's got a powerful engine. He doesn't really mind. He doesn't feel threatened by having Mansell right on his tail. He's just got to keep it tidy. But I would imagine that if he could, he'd prefer to have a 5-second lead and not have somebody buzzing around his rear end for the rest of the race. It makes it uncomfortable after Sunday afternoon's motoring, having somebody buzzing around your rear wing for an hour and a half. But certainly he seems powerless to do anything about Mansell's close up from behind, and Mansell has now got the gap down under a second, so he's in the turbulence from Senna's car, and now this last second is going to be very hard work for Mansell to get the car positioned to make an attack. But remember, we saw the worst situation. He's closing at every corner. Mansell, the Ferrari chassis, certainly working very well around the tight, twisty corners around the back of the circuit. And I should think this is an authoritative enough approach from the rear that must be making Senna feel a little bit worried.
And remember that Nigel Mansell, like Gerhard Berger, has yet to win a Grand Prix in 1990. Mexico was his highest finish, second place. And he's got the man that he has fought against in so many races in different makes of car in front of him and getting closer all the time. Mansell, his last lap was 0.3 of a second faster than Ayrton Senna. It's of academic interest now because it's a visual gap, and as we have said many times before, the turbulence from Senna's McLaren, and look at the size of the rear wing that he has got, will start. That's Cesare Fiorio in the dark classes, the Ferrari team manager, ex-Lancia rally manager, as Ayrton Senna goes through now on his 38th lap, and Mansell on the previous lap was again half a second quicker, and it's now a battle for the lead, and that is it. Senna, Mansell, and Mansell's going for it as they come out of turn 8.
And this is the sort of driving that makes Italy love Nigel Mansell when he's driving a Ferrari. Lion Nigel, they call him in Italy, and he's climbing all over the back of Senna. He knows he's not going to do it, or he's unlikely to do it on the start-finish straight. He's looking for a way round on the back, and for that, you've got to be a lion.
Lap 38, Senna leading Mansell, you can see the gap. Berger is 4 seconds behind now. There's the caption saying Prost is in 4th place and he's dropping back. Nannini is 5th, Piquet is 6th. As James has said, Senna doesn't have to win this race to increase his World Championship lead, because as long as he stays ahead of Prost, he's going to do that anyway, but he would certainly want to for reasons of pride. And they're coming up now to lap Maurizio Gugelmin, who is in 12th position in the quick but not quick enough Leighton House car with its Judd engine. And Mansell now has a look, as he did many times in the past with Gerhard Berger. Just shows Senna that he's there. Not that the Brazilian will be in any doubt about that. You'll see the Ferrari big in his mirrors, and he moves across and takes Gugelmin. Mansell now, he's consistently faster than Ayrton Senna. James has hypothesized that maybe Senna's tyres are not as good as Mansell's. The second set, this could well be true, but for whatever reason, the V12 Ferrari is certainly harrying the V10 Honda-powered McLaren. There are the leaders. Berger coming up in the background in 3rd place to catch and lap Maurizio Gugelmin. Prost is still 4th. Nannini is still 5th. The second peloton, there's Ron Dennis on the right and Gordon Kimball on the right. Dennis on the left, Kimball on the right, who is Ayrton Senna's team engineer, race engineer, and Mansell drops back a bit.
Yes, I think Mansell probably giving his tyres fairly well-deserved rest for the moment. I hope he's not in trouble, because he dropped back a little bit sharply there. I hope that's not mechanical. No, he's certainly going on full song. Berger in the background, just coming onto the pit straight, and Prost there you see a similar distance behind, with what looks like Gugelman and Leighton House car in between them.
Now watch Gerhard Berger as Mansell laps the Lola, because he's on a charge too, as is Prost. Berger was faster than Mansell and Senna on that previous lap, and Prost was faster than both of them. Indeed, Prost is the fastest of the four men now, in fourth position, and he's starting to cut into the 4-second gap between himself and third-place man Gerhard Berger. It's now down to 3.8 seconds. There he is in the background, Berger. And we are on lap 40 in this 71-lap race. All the leaders have changed their tyres, undoubtedly to another set of Goodyear Cs, the softest they can possibly use in race conditions. And Mansell in second position, as high as he has finished this year, going for a win. And everybody in Britain who is watching and listening will be hoping that the belief that Nigel Mansell is not going to retire but will be driving a Williams Renault next year is true, and what a marvellous prospect that holds out for us. Ayrton Senna and Gerhard Berger in McLaren Hondas, Alain Prost in a Ferrari, Nigel Mansell in a Williams Renault, not to mention, of course, Nelson Piquet and Sandro Nannini in the new John Barnard Benetton Ford, which is going to be appearing next year, and Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell Honda. So this is lap 41, and you're watching the battle for the lead, Senna versus Mansell.
Yes, and I'm interested. I'm watching Alain Prost's progress behind them, and as Mansell still really climbing all over the back of the McLaren, looking for a way back into his position to pressure Senna. And Prost behind them seems to be struggling to keep up. Prost, who went very, very quickly indeed as soon as they came out of the pits after the pit stop, as we expected, has been in clear air for a couple of laps and is making no impression on Gerhard Berger, and is lapping now slowest of the leading four cars, and he's in fourth place. So maybe Prost's got some minor problem.
Now, here's an interesting situation. The leaders are coming up to lap Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell Ford, and Alesi is going to be the teammate of Alain Prost in the Ferrari team next year. That's been officially confirmed, and off goes A. Williams. I don't know which one it is. Yes, I do. It's Riccardo Patrese, and he skated off the circuit. He kept his foot in it. The wide tyres enabled him to ride straight over the gravel.
And look at that huge gaggle of traffic ahead of Ayrton Senna. We saw the long shot down the straight, and there is Patrese going wide. He would have bounced over that bit of banking and shouldn't have damaged the car in that, but he'll pick up a lot of stones driving through the gravel trap there. So now there is Alesi at the back of a big group, and Mansell is not where he ought to be at the moment. Mansell wants to be right behind, tight behind Senna to take advantage of a mistake, and I don't quite see how Mansell suddenly dropped back like that, because he was right behind Senna as they came round the previous lap. Is Mansell in trouble again?
Well, it's Capelli in front of Ayrton Senna now in the Leighton House car, and Nigel Mansell has still not got ahead of Jean Alesi. Senna's now got two cars between himself and Mansell, who sadly, I have to say, does look as though he's in some sort of trouble, because the Ferrari is not going as quick as it was. His last lap was quicker than Senna's, but he suddenly started going slower on this lap. Let's hope when we see him in the next shot, he will be going quick enough to prove me wrong. Well, here is the next shot. They come down the start and finish straight to complete another lap, to complete their 42nd lap. Senna goes through, and there is Capelli behind him as Senna comes up to number 10, Alex Cathy, in the Arrows Ford, and Mansell is going well. I'm delighted to say that I was wrong, and Senna now is right up, Mansell is right up with Senna as he passes the Leighton House car. Now, how's Senna going to deal with Alex Cathy? Cathy on the left, Senna on the right, and Mansell is right behind the McLaren.
Yes, and the only thing I can think that might be a problem in Mansell's car, because he suddenly seems to go all right again, is that he may be having a problem with gear selection. Remember, that has been a bit of a thorn in the side of the Ferrari, their semi-automatic gearbox and the very complicated electronics required to work it. And that's the sort of thing, because the car seems to be going fine for a bit, and then he seems to drop back a little bit without explanation, and maybe he's having a bit of trouble with gear selection, or maybe there's one or two gears it won't get for him. And of course, with those sort of things, with it being electronic, they develop a mind of their own, and they're not even consistent from one lap to the next. It's with a conventional gearbox, when you've lost fourth gear or something, you know that's what you lost. But this can be more exciting than that.
And look at Berger, that's exciting. He's lapping 2 seconds faster than Senna and Mansell, who are delayed by traffic. Senna now leads Mansell by under a second, and Mansell is only 2.2 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger in third place, who is 2.9 seconds ahead of Alain Prost in fourth position. There's quite a gap now before the fifth place man goes through as you watch the leaders, and it's Nannini, and Mansell is now getting very close indeed to a situation where he can try to pass Senna, who's coming up behind the Dallara of Pirro.
And Senna looks as if he's positioned himself well, and he gets through, and in all this heavy gaggle of traffic, that's allowed Alain Prost to close up, but that may well be a temporary thing, because we know how he likes to pick his way very carefully through traffic, and of course Senna's passed most of the cars in the gaggle, and Prost still has a lot of cars to pass, so I'm sure this closing up of the overall gap is purely temporary at the moment.
Lap 44, race order: Senna, Mansell, Berger third, Prost fourth, Nannini fifth, Piquet sixth, Patrese seventh, Cappi is eighth, Capelli is in ninth position, Alain, who has been lapped, is 10th, Suzuki is 11th, Maurizio Gugelmin is in 12th place. Senna and Mansell go over the line again. The gap was 0.9 seconds, and at the end of the 44th lap, it's 0.4 seconds. That's because Mansell has lapped half a second faster than Senna. The traffic benefited the Brazilian, but Mansell now is attacking, no doubt about that, down to the 150 miles at 5 miles an hour, turn 2. Now they start the climb from turn 3 up to turn 4, the left-hander, up the very fast straight, third, fourth, fifth gear into turn 5, that's it. Now into sixth gear, underneath the banner, into the third gear, left-hander, turn 6 at 100 miles an hour. Senna leads, Mansell second. The gap between them, 0.4 of a second at the end of the previous lap, and they're coming up again to David Brabham to lap him. He's still running, the Australian, in the Brabham Judd. And I don't think that Ayrton Senna or Mansell will have any problems at all in getting past him. And Alain Prost really is in trouble in terms of getting where he needs to be, and that is a leading position in order to try to reduce the gap between himself and Ayrton Senna in the World Championship from 16 points to less. Incidentally, Senna has scored 10 times already. Prost has scored 9 times. There's no point in doing the complicated mathematics at the present moment, because we need to see how this race develops. Mansell, the gap now is 1 second, because Senna has gone round 1 minute 19.2.
Yes, and Prost, as expected, well delayed in the traffic, although he closed up for a while as Senna and the leaders were passing cars and he was reaching them. He's now dropped back, and he's some 9 seconds or so behind Ayrton Senna, and that looks a very, very comfortable situation for Senna. We see here just lapping David Brabham in the World Championship. And Senna also looking very comfortable, and despite the attentions behind him from Nigel Mansell, he looks in command. He doesn't look to be threatened at all. He's got the edge on the straights, which is an enormous advantage, and Mansell's making strenuous and tremendous heroic efforts, in fact, around the back of the circuit to find a way past Senna, but Senna's got everything very well covered. He's never looked like leaving a hole that Mansell could get through. So the two leaders come round, complete 45 laps. Berger still plugging away behind, some 3 and a bit seconds behind Mansell, but ready to pick up the pieces. And then there's 4.5 seconds on from Berger back to Alain Prost, and Senna is getting a bit distant, still with a little bit of traffic between them. And really this looks like beginning to look like the end of Prost's World Championship challenge for 1990 to leave Senna clear. And certainly he has driven magnificently since in the second half of this season.
If Ayrton Senna, that you're looking at now, finishes where he is in the lead, he will have 81 points from 11 races, and Alain Prost will have 59 points from 10 races, and that is looking like too much of a gap, even though there are 27 points still to be won from the Spanish, Japanese and Australian Grand Prix. The Australian Grand Prix, incidentally, on November the 4th in Adelaide, the 500th Grand Prix in the World Championship Series, or will be. 1.4 seconds was the gap between Senna and Mansell on lap 46. And as they go over the line, the gap on lap 47 is half a second less, just under 1 second. So Mansell is charging again. Fastest lap of the race.
Yes, another new lap record for Mansell, and there it is on the caption. And also Prost has put in his fastest lap of the race, so he's not dead yet, but I'm afraid in terms of this race from Prost, but there's only a spark of life there, but he's still showing that there is a vague spark.
Follow the bouncing ball. The yellow one is Senna, the green one is Mansell, the white one is Berger, and you can see how far on the circuit as they go into turn 6. Alain Prost is behind Gerhard Berger. In terms of time, it's about 3.7 seconds, and Prost is actually now the fastest man on the circuit. Faster than Senna, faster than Mansell, faster than Berger. This race is going to go right down to the wire, but it looks as though it's static in terms of places at the present moment, and I tell a lie because Nigel Mansell was the fastest. Now, 0.9 seconds. It really doesn't matter very much whether it's 0.9 seconds on that lap or 0.7 seconds as it was on the lap they've just completed. You can see what the gap is, and I can tell you, and James can tell you better, that Mansell has got this eternal problem of turbulence from the car ahead.
Yes, indeed. And sort of a sheet of flame there from the back of the Ferrari. But I don't think that's necessarily anything to worry about. Just a bit of popping and banging on the overrun. Yes, the turbulence from the car in front. Well, following a car very closely, of course, on the straights such as now, that's a help to the performance of your car. Did you see the little tear-off go away from Senna's car then, whether that was off his visor or just flicking the tire, picking up one that somebody else had abandoned onto the track? That is, of course, over the visors. They wear these cellophane sort of strips that are thin and go over the main bulletproof part of the visor. And, of course, there's dirt and muck from the car in front. A bit of oil makes it sticky, then a bit of dust and dirt. Then she makes it very difficult to see through. You just tear it off and you've got a clean visor again. So the turbulence certainly a problem for Mansell. It's good on the straight because the hole in the air helps pull the Ferrari along, the hole made by the McLaren, but when we get to the corners he's got big problems. He's close so he can't see very well because his view is full of the McLaren rear wing, and he's closer than ever, and I think Senna missed a gear coming onto the straight. Senna seemed to miss a gear, Mansell going for it, and Mansell is through. And a situation that, as expected, Senna was never going to fight back because second will do fine. It's Alain Prost he's racing at the moment. He surely wants to try and secure this championship, and I think Ayrton Senna missed a gear coming onto the straight because he was quite comfortably ahead of Mansell coming on, and then Mansell seemed to reel him right in. So, and another new fastest lap, marginally quicker for Mansell, so another lap record, and in the meantime Prost has closed in a little bit. Senna fighting back though. Senna, well, he didn't appear to put up a big Senna-like fight, because normally when somebody goes past Senna, at best he gives them a real squeeze going into the corner, but he didn't do that to Nigel this time. He may have remembered their previous incident going into that very corner and realised that he's far better off on the road in second place than off the road from first, or trying to defend first, and looks as if he's going to fight again. But I'm sure the Ferrari will be very quick onto the straight, and the McLaren will be, although quicker once on it, will be too far behind each lap. There we are when they come down the main straight. Now Mansell, let's see what he's done on his own in the lead. So Nigel Mansell leads. Well, that was a slow lap for everybody.
But not so slow for Gerhard Berger, who continues. He's fastest on the circuit on that lap, and he was 2.3 seconds faster than Senna. He's now only 2.7 seconds behind his teammates, and Senna, of course, is not going to want to defer to the Austrian. Lap 51. Mansell leads by over a second. You can see him there. Senna is second, Berger is third. The important story is Alain Prost, who's fourth, but 3.2 seconds behind Berger and ahead of Nannini, who is fifth, and Piquet, who is sixth.
Yes, but Prost is going quicker than Berger. Now, Berger, of course, as you rightly say, is quicker than Mansell and Senna on that lap, but at the moment, Berger and Prost do seem to be doing some of the catching, but Mansell, of course, given a clear track, been lapping very quickly, and I think he could move away to dominate this race now if he hasn't got any gear selection problem or whatever it was. There's a couple of times when he noticed that he dropped back a bit further than normal driving would suggest, but he's clearly, since then he's twice broken the lap record, so the problem at worst can only be spasmodic, but of course that won't help him if Senna's right behind him. Now, Berger still closing in, and a new lap record for Alain Prost as he goes through in fourth place. Alain Prost 1:18.4. Still, though, over 2.5 seconds, 2 3/4 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. Berger, in turn, is catching Senna. So this leading four, they spread out a little bit. At one time, there was 9 seconds covering them since the pit stop. Is now down to a total gap of about 6 seconds, and the concertina is closing in.
Lap 52 out of 71. What an enthralling contest this is turning into. Alain Prost, the fastest man on the circuit. There is only Gerhard Berger between him and his World Championship rival, Ayrton Senna, at the moment. Nigel Mansell leading and looking at the moment, cross fingers, like winning his first Grand Prix of the year for Ferrari. Senna second. Now Berger is definitely reeling the Brazilian in. There is Ayrton Senna in second place, and Gerhard Berger was half a second faster than Senna on the previous lap. Here they come now. I'll give you them. You can see there is Mansell, there is Senna, and the gap between Mansell and Berger is 3.6 seconds.
And Prost, if he wants to win the World Championship, and another new lap record for Alain Prost. I was saying he better get on his bike. Well, he appears to be on it. Prost has doubtless realised the situation. His driving certainly reflects that. His 2 lap records in successive laps, because he needs to get past both these McLarens. And while if they are close together, it's not going to be easy, because as we saw for Mansell earlier on, Senna can help tow Berger down the straight. But Prost somehow, if he wants to stay in the championship this year, has got to get past both McLarens and then rely on Nigel Mansell to slow down at the end of the race, to hand in the win and take second place, or Mansell to take second place away as Nannini goes to the pits now. Nannini was hoping to get through without a stop, and he's got tires. That was a pretty nifty tire stop by the Benetton team, but he was on the harder compound hoping to go the race without stopping. Now that's the worst time to stop, though. So, there, now, the battle for the lead. Well, the battle of the first 4, that's Gerhard Berger in third place, still closing in on Ayrton Senna. When they last crossed the line, it was 1.5 seconds, the difference. Here they are, Mansell over the line, Senna over the line, Berger, and a gap of just over a second. So he's closed in, and Prost, though still the fastest man on the circuit, is Alain Prost, and he is now 2.4 seconds behind Berger.
As Riccardo Patrese sprints out of the pits, having taken on a second set of tyres. Now, is Gerhard Berger going to stay where he is? No, he is not, if he can do anything about it. Senna in front of him in second place, and Berger is going for it. And as you can see, the gap between Senna leading the World Championship and Prost, who you can see behind Berger in fourth place, 3.6 seconds. Meantime, Mansell is pulling away. He's lapping faster than Senna, and not faster than Berger, who is closing up on the Brazilian. There is the Austrian, number 28, Gerhard Berger, who has driven for Benetton, of course, and Arrows and Ferrari, for whom he won the Portuguese Grand Prix last year. Alain Prost 2.5 seconds behind Gerhard Berger, but lapping faster than him. And in 5th position it's Nelson Piquet, 6th is teammate Nannini, 7th is Riccardo Patrese, who has just taken on a second set of tires. And look at this lot, as it's Gugelmin, the two Ligiers of Larini and Alio on the left, Pierluigi Martini in the yellow Minardi. Here is race leader Nigel Mansell. He comes up alongside and takes down the Alio. They clip each other, and that's where Alio went off yesterday. Mansell hit him, and he's through. Mansell, he seems to be unharmed and is in the lead still.
Yes, and Mansell was very lucky to not be taken off by that ridiculous piece of driving by Alio, who didn't even look at his mirrors. He didn't even know Mansell was there. And the man who crashes at every Grand Prix anyway, Alio, in practice, he's already managed one this weekend in practice, has taken himself out of the race. And if he drives like that, he shouldn't be in them anyway, because he was interfering with the leader, totally oblivious of the fact that the quick man was already beside him, drove into Mansell's front wheel, and luckily for both Mansell and for all spectators who want to see motor racing, the Alio is out of the race and can at least not take anybody else off.
And how incredibly lucky for Nigel Mansell, who, diving through on the inside, was able to get away. And there is Senna and Mansell and Berger, absolutely together. They've closed up on this, the 55th lap out of 71, of course, because of that Alio incident, and it's traffic problems again. Martini in the yellow car ahead of Mansell. Berger is going to try and take Senna. Prost is ahead of Gugelmin, and Mansell leads. This is where Alio went off on the previous lap, just out of this corner, and it's Mansell, Senna, Berger, Prost almost together. Martini is holding them up. Senna attacks again.
Yes, and Mansell has got a problem because he's got to watch his front and his rear, and that's never easy because Senna has got this clock, and Senna is really looking for a way back round Mansell. Prost has joined the group, so we have the leading 4 cars, the 2 McLarens and a Ferrari sandwich, and Senna is trying to change that. And this is all nail-biting stuff, particularly for Nigel Mansell. He desperately needs his first win of the season. Prost looking for ways around. Berger looking down the inside of Senna, and with the World Championship at stake, I don't think that'll please Senna very much at a place where there really wasn't much chance, and it's all go.
Indeed it is, because Prost is up there with Berger. It's Mansell, Senna, Berger, Prost, as quickly as you can say the names, in the first 4 places on lap 56 of the Portuguese Grand Prix, round 13 of the World Championship with 3 to go. Ayrton Senna fighting for his championship. Alain Prost doing the same thing. Now they're coming up to Larini in the second Ligier, and Prost is with Berger. Prost could go up to 3rd position in the corner here, and we lose the shot. Senna, Berger, Prost is still in 4th position.
Yes, and Prost is now faced with the problem that Mansell had early in the race, and that is with the 2 McLarens running nose to tail. When he pulls out from the toe of the second one, he goes into still air, and the McLaren that he's trying to pass, being the second of the 2, stays in the hole made by the other one. This helps it on the straight, is a disadvantage to the Ferrari, and that means that there's nothing he can do to get past him into the corner. Remember that Mansell had that problem early in the first half of the race, but as soon as the gap was big enough and he got clear out, or rather when, in fact, Senna went for the pits and left Berger without the help of the hole in the air, he went straight past. That doesn't look as if that's going to happen unless Berger can get past Senna and pull away, and that is a scenario that would help Prost, and he ought to hope for that. Berger looks in the mood to have a go at Senna, but I don't think the McLaren team or Senna would be wanting him to do that.
But Gerhard would, I think, and there's Prost in 4th position with the McLaren of Gerhard Berger right in front of him, and unless it's happened out of shot, that is Alio despondently and ashamedly, I should think, walking in, and Larini has still not been passed. There's Mansell. Mansell takes the Ligier, and of course all this fight behind is helping Mansell, because Senna is getting in the way of Berger, who is getting in the way of Prost in 4th position. Mansell has got a comparatively clear circuit ahead of him now. He's leading by 1.7 seconds, and this is lap 58 out of 71, with Senna 2nd, Berger in 3rd position, Prost in 4th place. They've got to cope with Larini now in the 2nd Ligier, with Alio, of course, very much out of the race, and we're still waiting for the 5th place man to come through, and In any second he'll be doing it, but with Riccardo Patrese now, very quick indeed, 118.3.
Yes, and of course, remember, Patrese made a second tyre stop, so he's gone out on fresh rubber and done that, undoubtedly on a clear track. But that puts a marker down for the others, because there is, well, I think it's probably a bit late now, but there was a time when I was thinking certainly the Prost should be giving thought to a second tyre stop. There's no doubt that the edge has gone off the tyres that these leaders are now on, especially with the ferocious battle that's been raging. That doesn't do the tyres any good in their long-term durability. And with about 20 laps to go, it occurred to me that Prost could be examining the possibility of another pit stop. And Prost coming past Berger now. Prost is inside him. He's definitely got the corner. Berger will fight, but he can't fight from the outside. Prost, we didn't see it, but sure, he is through. So, now, the battle for the World Championship. The current World Champion, Alain Prost, trying to cling on to his title that the World Champion from the previous year, Ayrton Senna, is desperately trying to regain. And we see again now Alain Prost got the toe, he got perfectly placed onto the straight, got inside Berger, and from this position the corner can only be Prost, and Berger, you see there, having to give way into the corner. Now, Larini still in the way. Senna finally passed him, and Prost will want to get that situation dealt with as quickly as he possibly can. He's trying down the inside. Larini helps him. Well, not brilliantly helped. He didn't give him any signal, but by holding Berger up a little bit there, that will please Prost. So it was the intention, the thought was there by Larini, but the execution of it was thoroughly incompetent.
10 laps to go at the end of this one. We've got a feast of Grand Prix racing in front of us, with Nigel Mansell leading at the end of the lap. Then
Prost right up Senna's exhaust, but not close enough this time. The power of the Honda looked to me as if we didn't see him go into the corner. It looked as if it was just going to save Ayrton Senna. It did. But Prost really charging. Now this, certainly, you know, when you look at the body language of a car, you can very often get the mood, and I haven't seen such an aggressive body language come out of Prost's car for a few races now. And certainly not. This is a very different Ferrari, number one Ferrari, to the one we saw in the first half of this race. Traffic. Senna gets past, and Prost with Berger close. And that looks at that Pirro, I think. And that's Emanuele Pirro. Now, he's normally a pretty sensible driver. And Berger trying to be opportunist, you see, with Prost there. And Pirro did. He made room. He let him through, but it delayed Prost a little bit somehow. And Berger, ever the opportunist, ever the aggressive driver, having a look.
And Mansell, comparatively speaking, clearing off. He's 3 seconds in the lead now from this battle between Senna, Prost and Berger for second, third and fourth places and World Championship points. Mansell completing the lap. There he is. You can see that Senna has got far enough ahead of Prost with that traffic problem to be comparatively safe going into this corner. But Prost is going to be charging again now with the knowledge that he can close the World Championship gap by 2 points. I really don't like that stab of flame that we keep seeing from the back of Mansell's Ferrari. If it was supposed to be there, it would happen all the time. But Mansell still leads on this, the 61st lap in this 71-lap race. Is he on his way to his first World Championship win in 1990 ahead of Senna, Prost and Berger?
Yes, we've seen that stab of flame inconsistently out of Ferraris several times this season, Murray, I've noticed. With the inconsistency, it would normally worry, but it doesn't seem to mean anything. I'm only saying that because of there is somebody very heavily buried into the barrier by the look of it.
It is Alex Cathy in the arrows, and it looks all right to me. I can see his helmet moving, and the under tray is right on.
Yes, the problem is this may require a race stoppage. The car looks in a very dangerous position, and it may just be, while his head was moving, he did look as if he was not able to get out of the car unless he was just collecting himself there. And I fear we're going to get a stoppage, and that may be 2/3 distance completed. And if we do that, that will be very unfortunate for Prost, who is set to challenge Senna for his second place, although he's not in quite in position to challenge at the moment. They've got clear traffic a long way ahead of Nigel Mansell. and for several laps now, there won't be back markers, and they're going to be able to race each other. So let's hope the organisers can move the wreck, and we keep this race going, because there's a lot of racing to be done. But if they stop it, remember, if more than 2/3 of the race is completed, it's declared a result.
Yes, I don't see how they can move Caffey's car, badly damaged, wedged into the Arco, and there was one of the Lolas involved there. I think it was a Aguri Suzuki that we saw off. But anyway, we are now on lap 62 in this Portuguese Grand Prix, which is turning out to be such a brilliant race, with Senna second to Mansell. He's closed the gap a bit, 2.8 seconds, by lapping 4/10 of a second faster than Mansell. Alain Prost still in that third position, but only a second or so behind Senna. Berger fourth, Piquet in the Benetton is in fifth position, Nannini sixth, Patrese seventh, Alain is eighth, and everybody has been lapped up to Alain, who is eighth. You're watching Senna second.
Yes, and that car certainly looks, Caffey's car looks in a very dangerous place. Without a crane, I don't think they'll be able to move it. And I'm sure there'll be some pretty unhappy drivers after the race, because that is, in the normal run of things, a place where they would definitely stop the race, because it's right on the outside of the corner, pretty much on, very close to the racing line, and anybody who slides off is liable to go straight into it, and hitting stationary cars is always pretty disastrous. Now, Prost has 10 laps to do something about clinging on to, and it's red flagged, and that will be, I'm afraid, the end of the Portuguese Grand Prix. I was just about to say that Alain Prost had 10 laps to get ahead of Senna, which with proper Ferrari tactics would have enabled him to win the race, leaving Senna third if Mansell had done the decent thing, which we're sure he would have done, to stop and let Prost past him, and that could have made all the difference for the championship. But this accident gives Senna a fantastically strong position.
Well, highly regrettable, but eminently sensible, because as you can see, Alex Caffey is still in the car. They have not been able to get him out. I hope from his head and arm movements that he's okay. Professor Watkins is out there, and Professor Watkins is one of the top neurological men in Britain, and he is the permanent doctor for the Grand Prix circus. And I hope that Caffey has just hurt his legs a bit, nothing more than that. I mean, I hope he hasn't hurt his legs, but obviously there is some problem there. It was very indeed to stop the Portuguese Grand Prix on coming up to the line, with the driver stopping and getting out. There is no doubt that this race will not be restarted, because, as James has told you, 2/3 of it has been completed, with Nigel Mansell having won his first Grand Prix of 1990, Ayrton Senna in second place behind him, Alain Prost just less than a second in third place behind Senna. But that means to say that Senna has got 2 more points ahead of Alain Prost, with Berger in fourth position. And it means to say that in the World Championship, as you watch the winner, Nigel Mansell, coming in his Ferrari, presaging, we hope, drives for the Williams-Renault team in 1991. Ayrton Senna leads the World Championship from Senna 67. Prost on 60, Gerhard Berger in third position in the World Championship and fourth in the race.
Yes, with 3 Grand Prix to go now, as they look over Alex Caffey on the side of the track now. With 3 races to go, an 18-point lead for Ayrton Senna over Alain Prost, and that really is virtually unassailable. The only glimmer of hope to help to make that slightly softer for Alain Prost is, of course, that Senna, oddly enough, is the person who will have to drop more points and drop them sooner in this championship. Remember, it's only your best 11 result, and therefore Prost could be construed mathematically to be slightly closer than 18 points. How much is too mathematical for poor old me to understand or know, but certainly it is a little bit of help to Prost. But it is virtually over, and Prost will be, I'm sure, a bit miffed now, because he was in a position to pass Senna and pull anything up to 5 points on him, and that was denied him by the accident. The race stopped 10 laps short, and a little lucky break for Senna, but I don't think he really needs it.
Well, we'll hope that Alex Caffey is all right. Mansell has won the Portuguese Grand Prix, a very fine and well-deserved victory, which gives him his first 9 points from one race of the year. Ayrton Senna in second place, Alain Prost in third position, and to make the top 4 men of Grand Prix racing complete, Gerhard Berger in fourth position. And behind Gerhard Berger, who was, of course, driving the McLaren Honda, in fifth position, it is the Benetton of Nelson Piquet, and in sixth position behind him, his teammate Alessandro Nannini. Only those 6 went the full distance.